Aha! Good evening, evening all. How are we all today? We've got an absolutely cracker of an hour to present to you in a bit, and it is going to be an absolute corker. Not only are we going to go over the press release that came out just a couple of days ago of the Boris wanting to build upon the Brexit achievements in 2022. I'm going to try and decipher what that exactly means. But we are also going to cover a guy later on today called Michael Helver. And he is a former Brexit Party MEP. So, and he has a very, very interesting conversation with a fellow Brexit Party MEP, talking about what they intend to do and try to essentially solve the problem of the essentially Northern Ireland Protocol. Again, so I hope you've got your laughing gear set ready, because this is indeed going to be a good one. But first of all, before we start, I don't know if you can notice the camera. As you can see, I've updated my camera equipment for this. The old camera that I used to have, I bought on a whim to actually try this, and now it's becoming my de facto setup. I thought, well, now I need to spend some decent money getting a proper camera. So as you can see, I've still got the bits on my shoulders here, but it's not as bad as it was in the old camera. And the new camera as well that we've got here, a lot better quality as well. So as always, thank you very much to the people that have supported this channel. Like I say, this is what I do with your money and your support, up the sort of levels of the equipment and sort out all this stuff. So like I say, thank you so much to all the people that do support the channel. Like I say, if you do want to help support the channel as well, there are links down below to my Patreon page and my One Earth Nation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And of course, there are the YouTube memberships open as well. So let's get on with this then, shall we? Tell you what, I'll put into this. But before we do begin, as always, let's say hello to the people in chat, see who we've got in this evening. So we have Cathology, evening to you. Pedals, good evening all. Happy New Year to you. Prinny Bird, good morning to you. Simon Carr, Wah from the Space Orc Hulk. Wah indeed. Lena Games, good evening to you all. Nicole De Smith, evening to you. Jean-Luc Picard, evening to you. Wim, hello there to you as well. So we've got a couple of people in, but like I say, please do remember to hit that like and share button. Like I say, it helps get more people in, and of course, the more people we're having, the more fun we can all have together. So most of you will know all of last year, in fact, pretty much every Good Morning Walk of last year, I can almost guarantee I had been saying, like clockwork, that I was predicting that there was going to be some sort of announcement or pamphlet or document that came out at the end of 2021 to say, this is Brexit. This is the first year of Brexit. Wasn't it amazing, guys? Look at all the fun stuff we quote unquote achieved. And to an extent, this is what I predicted, but it's not exactly what I predicted. So I was saying about 40% right on this, but this is essentially what it is. It's the government releasing their report saying, oh my word, wasn't 2021 fantastic for Brexit? Well, you ain't seen nothing yet. Wait until you see 2022. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where we are going to have to seriously worry about a whole host of things next year. I think a lot of people are going to be really shocked. Even leavers are going to be shocked at the amount of stuff that the Brexiteers actually want to do to the UK now that we've left, because Brexit was always driven by libertarians, especially the free market fundamentalist right wingers of the Conservative Party. And they are the ones who have effectively taken over control of the Conservative Party at the moment. It was a UKIP infiltration. And what has happened is they voted more and more free market fundamentalists in to be MPs, and essentially the centrists lost control of the Tory party. They're still in the Tory party, just not in the, shall we say, parliamentary Tory party. And sooner or later, they are going to have to, they're not going to have to, they will kick back. As I've been saying a while now, you've got to keep an eye on a lot of what's going on in the Tory party, especially like ideologically, politically, because these new Tories with the old Tories mixing together, the red wall Tories, all split along ideological lines. And Boris Johnson has been the one to sort of bring these guys together and keep them in some sort of check. Now, obviously, recently, because of the scandals, that, shall we say, strength is being severely tested to the point where many are now like, should we just get rid of Johnson? And that question was definitely put a lot of thought into by many members of the Conservative Party over this Christmas period. I can guarantee you that was indeed it. So, one of the big things, of course, is I think that the Brexiteers especially have been very, very anxious about the direction that Boris Johnson has been travelling. And there was no more sign than that, than, of course, Lord Frost's resignation. Indeed, even in his resignation letter, he comes out and says, I am not happy with the direction this government is going. And these was very much echoed by the rest of the hardcore Brexiteer zealots, not liking the direction that Boris was taking the party, even saying that Boris was not a conservative, that the Conservative Party just wasn't conservative enough, which, quite frankly, should shock and scare you quite a lot, because it just goes to show you how far right these MPs are, that they consider Boris Johnson and a lot of the cabinet members not conservatives. That should be ringing serious alarm bells about how far to the right many of these people are, especially when it comes to the libertarianism that they definitely have. And it is to no surprise that when we get into this, there is a big section about regulations. But of course, they don't spell out what regulations they intend to do. So let's go diving into this press release and try to find out together what Boris actually means by these Brexit achievements that he wants to build on. So we'll just do, there we go. So you can see it as well. Oh, there we go. So this is the press release from the government themselves. The PM, the government will go further and faster to maximize the opportunities of Brexit. The question is, what opportunities? You've had an entire year to use these opportunities, but you haven't. So why haven't you done it? If Brexit was the fun, fantastic thing that you constantly tell us that it is, what exactly is it that you want to do? So here we go into the press release. So the government will go further and faster. That's really worrying. Again, every time I've been through this, I've seen those words, further and faster, it just fills me with dread. Cannot lie. to maximise the opportunities for Brexit. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has said that the comments marking the one-year anniversary of the UK-EU Trade and Cooperation Agreement, or the TCA, again, an agreement now which many of Boris Johnson and many of the Conservatives all now say is terrible. Yet this time last year, they were still singing its praises. It wasn't until about March, end of March, maybe beginning of April, where they really started to turn against Boris Johnson's agreement. This landmark agreement, which came into effect a year ago today, is the world's, this is, I think, a lie, well, it is a lie, is the, quote, world's biggest zero tariff, zero quota free trade deal. The TCA that Boris Johnson signed has tariffs, has quotas. So both of those immediately are completely wrong. There are tariffs because importers and exporters are having to pay those tariffs, and there are quotas. So what is a quota for those who don't know about what international trade? Well, a quota is, again, keeping it simple, basically a country will go, right, we will allow you to trade, let's say, 100 units of, I don't know, 100 units of lumber to us at maybe about a 5% tariff. And we will allow you to do that until you've met that quota. Once that quota comes in, the tariffs start to go up. So once X amount of like that 100 units of lumber has been imported to the EU, that's when the tariff kicks in. That's why at the start of the year, it may be cheaper to send your products to the EU than it is at the end of the year when those tariffs get fulfilled. So, as you can see, this is once again worryingly, considering that this is meant to be, you know, our government doesn't seem to, well, it seemed to be very much willing to lie about the deal that they had signed. Yeah, cheese. Yeah, I should have used cheese, Nicole. Yeah, Nico, that's it. I should have used cheese. 100 units of cheese. That's what I should have used. Yeah, you are very true. Yeah, how could the TCA possibly bigger than the absolute free trade deal with zero tariffs or quotas as the UK had in the single market? Yeah, completely true. And this will be forever the millstone that gets tied around any government's neck. We had an absolutely fantastic deal being in the single market and customs union. Europe is our biggest market. That ain't going to change regardless once we leave it. Doesn't matter about all these trade deals you're signing. We've only done one with Australia. Everything else has been pretty much a rollover deal, and even that has its problems. So, yeah, this is so worrying that they start off like that. But hey, it's Boris Johnson. You know, we expect lies at this point. So it allows businesses in Britain to trade freely with Europe. Businesses are currently not trading freely with Europe. We can tell you that right now. While also being able to seize new trading opportunities with countries around the world. You've only done one with Australia, and the UK, by all accounts, pretty much gave Australia everything it wanted. Australia's economy will benefit from that. The UK's won't. That's how bad the Australian trade deal is. It's bad. Not only that, it throws farmers completely under the bus. So expect, especially at the next election, farmers to be really angry at the Conservative government for doing that. And yeah, again, Pilch, you're right. The Japan deal, because of their what's it called now? That's it. The subsidies. The big thing in Japan deal is that the subsidies have Japan can actually go after companies in the UK that export to Japan if they've got subsidies active in the UK, meaning that Japan actually has control, meaning that they have sovereignty over companies now in the UK. That was one thing in the big Japan deal. And you'd think Brexiteers would be all up in arms against that. They don't have a single problem. Not one Brexiteer has said a single thing about that Japan deal. Oh, I wish the farmers in the UK would just go like full French farmer and do what the French farmers normally do in France, which pretty much grinds France to a halt when they protest. I wish the British farmers would have the cojones to actually go and do that. That would be fantastic. But here we are. So here we are. Here are some of the benefits. So since the agreement was signed, the government has sought to try and capitalize on new freedoms by cutting red tape for businesses. Haven't cut any red tape at the moment because they daren't. Reforming the EU rules and regulations and boosting trade abroad to create new jobs here in the UK. Key successes include no red tape has been cut because you may remember earlier this year, the board of when they went out to businesses to say, hey, what EU like red tape legislation do you want to get rid of? All the businesses fired back and said, we don't want any regulation going. Like, we don't want any of it going. So they're not even going to mention that. So let's see what some of these key successes are. So the first one, taking back control of our borders, replacing freedom of movement with a points-based immigration system that attracts the brightest and best talent from around the world. Would you also be talking about the talent that the British government tried to attract with its Turing Award? An attempt to try and get some of like Nobel Prize winning scientists to move to the UK. Just come closer. You might want to mention that no one, not one person, applied for that. So not one person applied to it. And that's true. Not one person applied to what was meant to be this amazing thing to try and grab the best and brightest to this. The UK, as a lot of academics are worrying about at the moment, has become academically adrift now from the rest of Europe. And that we will not attract now the best and brightest. And a points-based immigration system, well, it was obviously the long-held dream of Nigel Farage to have a points-based immigration system. But here's the thing. We could have had a points-based immigration system. What we could have done was gone, okay, all non-EU just logged on, and the first thing I hear is BHM laughing. Same old, same old. Well, You've got to have some. We've got to have some joy in our lives, especially when we're talking about Brexit. What the UK government could have done was they could have applied a points-based immigration system to all non-EU immigration. They could have. It was well in their power to be able to do that. And even when it came to like EU immigration, there were many, many powers that the UK government just didn't use. You know, everyone by now has probably seen the infamous Femi video where I think he's talking with someone. I can't remember if they're like a UKIP conference or something like that. And Femi is asking him these questions of, so what would be like an acceptable thing for immigrants to come over? And he starts listing, you know, to have private health insurance, to have savings, you know, not to be a burden on the state during like their application period. And he says the Brexiteer he's talking to says yes to all those. That would be absolutely fantastic if we could do that. Femi then turns around and just says that is literally EU law. And then he just turns around and just goes and then just walks off. And then Femi just bursts into laughter. Easily one of the most funniest videos to show just how little Brexiteers or people who were campaigning for Brexit actually understood what they were fighting against. Oh, this is a classic one. Securing the vaccine rollout, streamlining the procurement process and avoiding the, quote, cumbersome EU bureaucracy to deliver the fastest vaccine rollout anywhere in Europe last year. First of all, that is an absolute lie. We did not have to leave the EU to secure this vaccine rollout. That is an absolute lie. Now, what the EU did was it decided that instead of all the countries going separately and buying and competing for each other for like vaccines, the EU decided let's instead just buy bulk. Like, let's have a massive order for the EU rather than all the other countries ordering for themselves. And by the way, this also did not stop individual countries making vaccine orders, and many of them did. So once again, another lie. And as Sophie is pointing out, the UK is now 15th. We may have been the first, but our vaccine rollout was very quickly taken over by the European countries once they started to implement vaccines. They very, very quickly took us over. And it wasn't like small countries like, you know, Luxembourg or the Netherlands or Belgium or some, you know, countries that have like smaller populations. So you can go, well, they had a smaller population, so of course they, you know, looked good when they were having the vaccine rollout. No, it was France and Germany that were beating us. So this whole vaccine rollout was once again a complete lie and was not a Brexit benefit. It's one of the things that is being tried to being sold as a Brexit benefit. Like, look how popular this whole thing, you know, this thing was. They will say we could have been in the EU and still done what we did. No difference there. So again, something that is being very often, and you will hear Brexiteers crow about this, about the vaccine rollout. Again, complete lie. So the next one, striking new free trade deals, or shall we say rollover deals, to be more accurate. So with over 70 countries worth over 760 billion, including, quote, landmark trade deals with Australia and New Zealand, that pave the way for our entry into the 9 trillion comprehensive and progressive agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. First things first. The only free trade deal we have signed is with Australia. All the other deals that we have done are rollover deals. Those rollover deals are temporary. At any moment, Canada, South Korea could just go and just end the rollover deal like that. Those deals are temporary until a free trade agreement can be sorted. That is what those deals are. And much fanfare was made about, of course, these rollover deals. They are just rollover deals. They are not better than we had when we were in the EU. They are not, well, depending if you look closely at them, they're not worse. They are exactly what we had when we were in the EU. They are not better deals. They are not currently worse deals, but they will be in the future, given by how our awful trade deal with Australia went, when basically the British seemed to, well, we basically rolled over and essentially equested everything over to Australia and just went, here you go, please have mercy on us, give us a trade deal. And that is probably going to go the same way for the New Zealand one as well. And farmers are not happy. Farmers are not happy at all. And something that is going to come back into our politics is it has been a very, very long time since politics about like trade deals and how like trade affects us and all, other countries has been a thing in British politics. This year especially, that is going to come more and more into our politics the longer this goes on. So yeah, expect that. Expect that. But again, trying to get our way into the comprehensive or the CPTPP. At the moment, no country is saying welcome in, because as many experts that we've covered all over this time, all the experts have said, why are these countries going to change their current trade agreement with all the countries in the Pacific to try and make it advantageous for us to be on there, like to be in their group? Remember, we're on the other side of the planet. The clue's in the name of the organization we're trying to join. And even then, us joining this has been cited from economically giving us about 0.9, I think it's 0.9% if we join the CPP. We've lost 4%. I think we're going to lose more than that. I really do think we are going to lose more than that, because if you may remember, back in the good old days, many economists were saying that the worst case scenario for Brexit was 8%. That was like the worst case scenario. We would lose 8%. And remember, 4% GDP is a lot to lose. 4% may sound a small number, but in reality, you are talking billions of pounds gone from the economy. And, just go over some of the businesses we've been covering this year. They've lost 20, 30, 40% of their business. And now with the import rules coming in as well, the 1st of January, expect to see even more of those. I will not be surprised if very soon we are coming more of those. So let's continue on, shall we? So here's the good one. So, axing red tape and bureaucracy, ending the tampon tax, simplifying complex EU alcohol duty rates, forging ahead to remove the ban on selling in pounds and ounces and to restore the crown stamp onto the side of a pint glass. Wow. First thing of all, from what I've read about the tampon tax, the government could have done that. The government could have done that. It didn't have to leave the EU to do that. Simplifying the complex EU alcohol duty rates. Again, one of the big things, if you talk to brewers, I'm sort of very lucky where I am. In South Yorkshire, especially Sheffield, there is a massive, massive brewery scene in Sheffield. There's a ton of like independent breweries that have their own pubs, you know, etc., etc. If you ever talk to like any of the owners, they don't care about the alcohol duty rates. It doesn't affect them. Their biggest concern is the alcohol tax. That's their biggest concern. Because that to them stops them growing far more than the alcohol duty rates. And the duty rates only really affects big businesses. But again, there are a lot of small breweries that do export, especially around, again, in the Sheffield area. And again, they mostly, surprise, surprise, export to the EU. So I fully expect, in fact, in a couple of days, I do want to try and do a video on these, because again, this is sold once again, and many Brexiteers are cooing about this alcohol duty rate. There's a massive Brexit win, but again, if you talk to people in the industry, that's not what they care about. Forging ahead to remove the ban on selling in pounds and ounces. Britain has been metric for quite some time. The whole reason we moved and this ban came in place was essentially to try and standardize everything. You know, I grew up in like the metric. When I would go to like a shop or anything like that, you would buy in metric. You wouldn't buy in the imperial measurements. So removing this ban, all it does is it plays to their base. Anyone who is essentially old and remembers those good old days when they could buy a pound of bananas, etc., etc. But again, it's not a win by any stretch of the imagination. And then, of course, the crown stamp on the side of pint glasses. How is this a win? Like, how is this a win? I don't remember. I do not remember a single Brexiteer at the 2016 referendum making an issue that there was no longer a crown stamp on the side of pint glasses. Okay, if that Brexiteers, if that what helps you sleep at night, that you've now got a crown stamp on the side of your pint glasses. Although, again, going to pubs, I'm pretty sure I've seen pint glasses and drunk from pint glasses that have a crown stamp on. How that makes Britain great. So again, a Brexiteer is really going to have to explain how that makes it better now, because it doesn't change the, as far as I'm aware, it doesn't change the flavour of the pint that it's got a crown stamp on or not. It doesn't change the flavour. And of course, the last one, This is the good one. Strengthening our standards, allowing the UK to go further than the EU and set improved environmental standards, animal welfare, and product safety. Oh, if only we could believe you, Boris, because what video did I just do a couple of weeks ago? What video did I just do a couple of weeks ago? Oh, that's right. The government are lowering our chemical safety standards. How are you strengthening and improving our standards when you've just lowered a couple of weeks ago now the chemical safety standards? So one of the big things was that if you are a company that is using a quite hazardous or toxic chemical that is dangerous to the public health or the environment, you have to go to the government, or in this case, you have to go to the regulator and say, I am using this chemical. To which the regulator might say, okay, this is on our banned list, but by the way, there are these other chemicals we would like you to use instead. Can you do so? And of course, the manufacturer might go, well, we can't for X, Y, and Z reasons, but we can use this chemical. You know, the negotiations would happen. But the important thing is that the manufacturer or the user of those chemicals would be telling the government. Now, it is voluntary. So a manufacturer or someone who uses those chemicals doesn't even have to inform the government, doesn't even have to inform the regulator. And there's a lot more stuff in there. Like I say, go watch that video that I did just a couple of weeks ago on those chemicals. It's really worrying that they think that this comes out saying, oh yeah, we're strengthening our standards. Just a few days ago, you literally weakened the chemical standards, which is going to cause environmental damage and possibly in public health. And the thing about why you have such strong regulations around chemicals, especially chemicals, is that if an accident happens or if there's a leak or something like that, the damage is done. It permanently damages the environment. You could end up with serious public health problems, issues, illness, death. And if you don't believe me why it's so bad to have low chemical standards, all you have to do is go look at America. In America, there are literally large pools of toxic water that are literally leaking into the ground that the government doesn't know about because companies don't have to tell them that. And yeah, and you can see these all the time. There are constant cases in America of people suing companies who have diseases related to these toxic chemical spills. And very often they end up settling out of court, so it never makes the newspapers or anything like that. That is why it is important to have high standards when it comes to use of especially dangerous chemicals. And it is laughable that they've said, oh yeah, we're going to strengthen our standards. They've just done the exact opposite. Every single point they've listed there, we could have remained in the EU to have. The public doesn't either want that type of thing, or your bonuses that your points that you've mentioned here are so pathetic that you're having to use them because it is literally the only thing you have. And bear in mind, you've got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. 5 points to say, look how wonderful Brexit is. Can we see why now there was no celebration about 1 year of Brexit now? There might be next year, though. There might be next year if Boris Johnson is really going to set out that this is the year that 2022, this is the year we take advantage of all those Brexit benefits, then maybe next year there might be. So anyway, it continues. So, having left the EU, the UK is now able to establish a regulatory regime which is free of prescriptive EU rules and best suits, our own interests. There was not a lot of these EU laws and the regulatory regime which was prescriptive. It was literally, regulations are very often in place for a reason. And most of all, it is essentially to protect the public and also to help. Most of these regulations that they want to get rid of are essentially so that a company can not cut water, but cut costs and keep costs low. That is the why. That is why they are there. So the fact that they're against us again talking about cutting regulation, I can already expect this year. I am not an expert on regulation, but I can guarantee you this time next year, I might be very well be a regulation expert with the amount of potential chaos and amount of cuts that they are going to go after for regulation next year. So something I can see doing very well for myself. So as part of this effort, officials are currently reviewing thousands of individual EU regulations automatically kept on the statute book after Brexit, known as retained EU law, to ensure that they benefit people and businesses in the UK. Laws which do not meet these tests will be either reformed or repealed. So alongside the review into EU law, work which is already taking place across Whitehall to create a, quote, better regulatory framework and ensure that the UK is the leading edge of science and technology. Again, incredibly laughable. One of the big things why the Turing Award failed and a lot of people did not take the bait to come to the UK was because the government does not fund science or technology. It just does not fund it at all. We have the lowest form of that spending, and yet the government constantly saying we're going to be at the leading edge of all this science and technology. You don't fund it. Why are we suddenly going to become the leading edge of this when the government itself does not fund science and technology? I, this is the most easily the most fanciful press release I've ever written, and of course the worrying thing, of course, is of course this going through of these EU laws, which again is really worrying because the chemical regulation happened just a couple of weeks ago now. Very little press attention, which is incredibly worrying to me that it got so little attention about that. Anyway, we'll continue. So one of the things here, it's the usual, guff you've seen. Artificial intelligence, world leader in future transport, including autonomous marine vessels, self-driving cars, and drones. Funny, if you may remember, also just a couple of months ago now, we went over the industry-leading drone magazine. And what did those experts say? The government is allowing the drone industry to wither on the vine to a point where the drone industry will just move to the EU. Again, what did I say just a few moments ago? The government does not care about science and technology, or else it would be funding science and technology. This is this is the fun one. This is the fun one about GDPR. This is going to be this is seriously going to be a nightmare. Right. So, story time. When GDPR came in, a couple of years ago now. Obviously, I've said before I work in marketing. So in marketing, we are handling people's data all the time. We are handling data all the time. So like GDPR, I am up on GDPR. I know what you have to do. And I remember GDPR when it came in. GDPR is the world standard in like data protection. So it's so hilarious that the government thinks it can create this parallel like infrastructure that is like proportionate, and what they call it, more proportionate and less burdensome. What do you mean by that? What do you mean that it's more proportionate? What do you mean that it's less burdensome? Burdensome. Because I'll tell you now, GDPR is not hard. Like, if you work in like the data world, you'll know like GDPR folders and books are really, really thick. But to be honest, it's really simple. You know, keep people's data safe, be able to point to where your server is. If you have a breach, inform the information commissioner when you know that breach happened. You know, I can just start listing stuff off. It's not that hard. It is so simple. But the idea that we are going to have a parallel system, which, by the way, will only affect essentially the UK. And if you are, again, a company that handles, let's say, people's data in the EU or around the world, you will still have to follow GDPR. There is a reason why GDPR is the world standard in data protection. This won't fly. This will be absolutely awful. I've said before about when it comes to manufacturing, manufacturers are so worried that they're going to have to now spend more money when these regulations come in, basically having to have two supply chains, two like production lines, one for the EU, one for the UK. And yeah, it's going to cause more money. It's going to cause so much ridiculousness stuff. Look, guys, GDPR not that hard to do. It really, really is not hard to do. As much as I remember when it was all coming in, you may remember yourself all the fear mongering that was around GDPR. Oh my God! If you accidentally leak someone's email address, you're going to get fined like £1 billion or like 4% of your turnover. And I remember those claims. None of that ever happened. That was just people actually trying to sell GDPR courses. And I should know, I helped an IT company sell those courses at the time. So I'm partly to blame for all that fear mongering. I'll fully admit that. But yeah. Anyway, let's continue on. Rolling out new agricultural system changes, changing the rule on gene-edited organisms to enable more sustainable, more efficient farming and help produce healthier, more nutritious food. Okay, yes, gene editing is just a tool. I think GMO crops are a good thing. They definitely need to be more looked into and be able to do the research. And of course, we need the rules and regulations around that to help be able to do that. So, of course, this doesn't mean lowering the standards. It means allowing and having rules and regulations around that so that we can have these things. And again, gene editing or GMO stuff makes there's a lot of very heavy environmentalists who use like GMO and treat it as like a big, scary Frankenstein thing. No. Essentially, GMO stuff is no more different than using a hammer or a nail. So that's all it is was. What's this, Demeter? I didn't the time when the propaganda about you will not be able to post memes was. Oh yes, yeah, there was a lot of stuff around GDPR at that time. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, yeah, I remember that as well. Saying, "Oh my God, GDPR is not going to allow you to post memes." That hasn't changed at all. But yeah, so yeah, GMO, I'm for it. It's a technology. There needs to be a lot more research done around it, and it's just letting that research happen and seeing what happens with it. So I'm for like GM stuff, like GM testing, see what we can do. Because again, like anything, genetic modification is a tool that we can use, and it's not just like for crops and agriculture as well. This does have massive medical benefits as well. In fact, the technically the vaccine we had, the AstraZeneca vaccines, those are products of genetic modification. So, so reforming medical devices regulation to foster the development of new emerging devices, harnessing cutting-edge technology and software. This will ensure access to the world's most innovative technologies for the NHS patients while maintaining quality and care. Well, the NHS is actually going to have to probably buy those technologies as well. So, and again, considering the fact that the government is not funding the NHS, doesn't really sound that's going to be massively beneficial because the NHS will probably not be able to buy them because you aren't funding them. And then, ladies and gentlemen, we get onto the task force. The task force. These plans obviously build on the recommendations for the Task Force for Regulatory Reform, Innovation and Growth, or the TRIG, led by Sir Ian Duncan Smith, which reported the government earlier this year. And you may remember when we covered that, all the businesses turned around and said, we don't know what, we do not want this regulation gone. We want it either more than we have now, or we want it keeping the same. All the businesses were literally reporting as one in this: do not lower regulations, because that will even make it even more harder to trade with the EU. Again, our closest market. That's how trade works. And then you get the PM's statement here, and quite frankly, it's just the same at the top, which is quite funny actually. You'd think, again, having written a fair few press releases in my time, you'd think that this statement here would be a lot further up at the top. Like maybe you'd do a little bit of an intro with what the Prime Minister had to say, and it would probably maybe come around here somewhere. So it would like sit in between there. Like if I was writing this press release, that's where I'd sit. But with what the Prime Minister said, which was basically what was put on here, it was essentially a more comprehensive, understandable version for this. And quite frankly, I can't be bothered to go into what Boris Johnson said on it. But essentially, we've just been over it here, written in a more clear, understandable manner. So that's essentially the government celebrating the first year of Brexit. Not the big fanfare I was, to be honest, expecting. I was expecting a lot bigger a lot, much bigger fanfare having in this. I was much more expecting there to be much bigger fanfare around this, but there wasn't, which quite honestly surprised me when this happened. I thought it was going to be a much bigger thing, but maybe, of course, that in reality, because indeed, hang on, let's get down to it, because as you can see here, that is what they're calling the Brexit benefit. Brexit benefits, and we've just been through all those, and we've literally just poked holes in all of them, just showing how they're basically not even one, that they are not even one proper benefit to this. So this just is not going to go well. If that's what they are saying was achieved in 2021, then 2022 is going to be scary. 2022 is going to be incredibly scary. Just based on the fact of the chemicals deregulation we've just had very recently. There is seriously a lot to worry about. And you can see why the Brexiteers, just a couple of weeks ago, I said the Brexiteers were in massive high anxiety about all this. Oh, thank you very much. Alexis G, I feel scared. What can I do? What can we all do? Say it all the time. Get involved. Go join your local political party. Even if you want to go join the Conservative Party, I won't mind. I won't judge you. And then write to your MP. Those chemical regulations that I talked about. Again, go back, watch that video. There's some really great quotes from the article that you can go and pull from. Send those to your MP. I've sent my letter very recently, well, my email to Dan Jarvis. I got a reply from him. He said that he thanked me that he brought this to his attention and that he was going to look into this further, because it's, again, the first time he'd even heard, I think, suspected about this. So do write to your MPs. It has an effect. And organize letter writing campaigns. If you know someone else in your area that is also concerned when you tell them about this, get them to write to your MP as well. Honestly, there's a lot of people that just like rubbish writing to your MP. Honestly, write to your MP. It has more impact than you think. And especially if you can organize a letter writing campaign about the same thing, that's when MPs really start to sit up and notice, if they're getting like more than one letter about this as well. So that's essentially what you can do. So Alexis, I agree to you. It is very, very scary, especially about the chemical regulation stuff. I'm fully with you on that one. It is very scary. So what can you do? Write to your MP. Simple as. And in fact, I may do a video maybe this year at some point about how to write to your MP. It might be very boring, but to be honest, there's so many people who don't even know how to write to your MP, what their address might even be, or how to get in contact with them. And to be honest, there are multiple ways you can even do that. So do not be afraid. Do not be disheartened. Write to your MP about these issues. Like New Year's resolution, because obviously we're still around that time. If you're British and you're watching this, I challenge you this year. Whenever something political happens that you see as an issue or that you are worried about, write to your MP. And I'm challenging you all to do it at least 3 times at some point this year. If you can do that this year, then congratulations. You are going to be classed as probably more politically active than anyone else in the UK, because there's so many people out there who just do not do this, who rubbish the fact that do this. The other thing you can do also, if this has really worried you and you don't want to write to them, MPs have surgeries. Go to one of their surgeries. Bring this issue to them face to face. It's, again, not that hard to do, not that hard to find out. Like I say, MPs do advertise the fact that when they are having surgeries, it's part of their mandate to do what they do. So again, get involved. Write to your right. This is the challenge. So again, at 3 points in this year, I want you to write to your MP. Write to them about something that you care about, whether it be about the chemical things, the deregulation I've mattered. There will be a lot of stuff probably happening this year, especially around regulations. So there's going to be lots of opportunities this year to write to your MP. If you do not want to write to them, find out when one of their surgeries is and go and see them. And again, the same thing applies. Go and see your MP. It's not that hard to do. Go see them. But oh yes, thank you very much again, Cathology, for applying with the crown on it. Thank you very much for your support there. But yeah, go write to them, go see them, get involved. It might be a bit scary, but don't be afraid. If you go to see them, like prepare, have your talking points, have the article with like the quotes on if you're going to do the chemical stuff. There's going to be honestly lots of opportunities this year, especially around regulation. And this is even going to be new for MPs because MPs themselves actually haven't had to deal with regulation for quite some time. So this is going to be new for a lot of MPs as well when it comes to the area of regulation. So make them care by showing that you care. And talk to other people in your local area as well. Encourage them to do the same thing. Maybe not like 3 letters a year, but if you're talking about an issue that they see and you can see that they're worried as well, get them to write about it to the MP as well, or get them to go and see the MP, or get them to send an email, something like that. It takes like 5 or 10 minutes to maybe do. It does not take a lot of effort to become politically active in this country or seen as more politically active. It really, really doesn't. And that's what you can do. That is what you can do as an individual and what you can do for a large, again, group. Encourage others to write to their MP, to go and see their MP when he's at surgery and stuff like that, and bring these issues that you care about to their attention, because it has a bigger impact than a lot of people actually think it does. So that's my my political advocacy done for this. So as always, if you do want to, by the way, support the channel, make sure you do click that like and share button. Like I say, it all helps, gets more people in. Down below, there are links to my Patreon page and the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And also the YouTube memberships are open as well. So thank you very, very much to all the people who do support the channel that way. So now we're going to go over to something that's fun. Something that's fun. Something that's really, really fun. I was thinking originally maybe covering Jeff. I was originally going to cover Jeff. You all know Jeff Taylor. You all know Jeff Taylor. But as I said, you can only cover so much Jeff before before you have a Jeffism or a Jeffgasm. Oh no, I don't know. But I found someone new recently. I found someone new who is even more, well, put it this way, should be more learned than Jeff. Should be a lot more learned than Jeff. Hash Rebel. The capitalist tannery has no prisoners, but has lots of hostages. They're now free to use the sort of force to make profit for their businesses. Yep. Difference between choice and force. All is now force in the theory of the corporate criminals. Yeah, pretty bird. Jeff doesn't help. I need mental floss for that. True. Very true. But we're not covering Jeff. We ain't covering Jeff today. We are covering someone new. We're covering a guy. In fact, we are covering this guy. Hang on. There we go. We're covering this guy. So, who is this guy, you might ask? Pretty obvious by his background. He's a Brexiteer. But who is he specifically? Because, interestingly enough, this guy isn't a nobody. This guy is not a nobody. This guy is a former MEP for Brexit, for the Brexit Party. Now, his name, of course, is Michael Heaver. I think that's how you say his second name. I'm seeing a lot of seeing a lot of reactions in chat already. Oh no, not this guy, not him. This guy's comedy gold. I agree with you. He is absolute comedy gold. How was he an MEP? That's the question I asked myself many times. But he is again a Brexiteer, as you can see from the title of this video. Brexiteer calls for the UK to terminate EU deal. Now, as I've said before, that will come with so many consequences. So many consequences. The mind boggles. It will probably start a trade war with the EU, which we will lose because essentially the EU is the bigger market. And guess what? Bigger markets win against the smaller markets. Again. Not only that, we will also very much lose the very much vaunted and prized US trade deal, which all the Brexiteers were salivating for back in 2016. That was the big prize, of course, was meant to be for Brexit. We'd get this fantastic deal with America that would look making in the single market, look like pathetic. That was what it was for. So this guy here is the say a former MEP. Now, I don't know if he will ever see me reacting to his video. I have no idea if he will ever respond to me or anything like that. But I want to reach out to Michael now because I've never talked to a Brexiteer. I've tried to in the past. I've reached out to a couple of Brexiteers. Some stuff in the past, they've either said no thank you, or when I've asked about what the topic was, I very specifically said I want to talk specifically about this Brexit thing, like the chaos that's currently going on at the ports or something like that. They've flatly refused and turned me down. So, Michael, you are, a prominent Brexiteer. You're a lot bigger than me. He's got what? 71.8k subscribers. That's a lot of subscribers. And it seems to me this is AstroTurf, because if you've got that many subscribers and you've got a video with only 18,000 views, again, don't get me wrong, 18,000 views is a lot. But for a channel that's got 71.8k subscribers, I would be expecting a lot more views on your channel. But I want to reach out to you, my friend. I want to talk to you. Anytime you want to talk, you probably know how to reach me. I've recently sent this out on Twitter, by the way. If you want to go to my Twitter page right now and like and retweet that, so it hopefully maybe gets Michael's attention, I'd personally love to speak to this guy about Brexit, what he thinks is going on, what the true objective is for Brexit, what he thinks the true objective is for Brexit, what he thinks, because I would love to seriously pick his brain on this. So, Michael, whatever, if you're up for a chat, let me know. Because I would really like to talk to you, my friends. So we're going to go into this and find out about this Brexiteer friend. He's got, again, another Brexit Party MEP and what they think about all this. So we're just going to go through this now. So I might have to adjust the sound for you all. So let me know what it's like before we properly get into this.
Round of the year, delighted to say, friend of the channel and my former Brexit Party MEP colleague, Ben Habib, joining me on the channel today to look at where we are in terms of negotiations with the EU on the Northern Ireland Protocol. First of all, Ben, how are you, sir?
So first things first, can everyone hear that? Is that sound fine? Is that coming through for everyone well? Because it's been a while since I've done a video, so I just want to make sure that my setup's all right. So is the sound coming all right for you all? Was it all right? Was it not echoing or anything like that? This is the thing when you've got a delay. Now I'm going to wait. Now I'm going to wait for a response. If you don't respond, I'm just going to presume that it was all right. Yep. Sounds okay. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Right, let's crack on. Let's crack on. I need to get some earbuds, I think, definitely. But yes, let's crack on with this. So Michael is here, as you may have heard. He's bringing on another one of his former Brexit Party colleagues. So this is going to be fun. What they have to say about the Northern Ireland Protocol, because this gets quite spicy.
To look at where we are in terms of negotiations with the EU on the Northern Ireland Protocol. First of all, Ben, how are you, sir?
I'm very well indeed, thank you, Michael. How are you?
Yeah, not doing too badly, not doing too badly. And I thought it'd be great for viewers of my channel to get your insight into where we are in terms of the protocol, in terms of, as I said, these negotiations with the EU. So first of all, I want to highlight the tweet that you put out making a prediction, and I'll bring it up on the screen there. My prediction, you said, for 2022, Boris Johnson will accept ECJ supremacy in Northern Ireland. He will buckle like he did over the WA and then the TCA. Prove me wrong, you say, Liz Truss. Now,
so this is what their conversation is about. Of course, many of you may remember, literally a week before Frost resigned, the government announced that it would be dropping the demand to remove the ECJ from the Northern Ireland Protocol. And of course, a week later, what happens? Frost quits. Very interesting, very, very well timed. And now, of course, in comes Liz Truss saying that that demand is back in. Now, that is obviously what she has said publicly on her Twitter. We do not know, of course, if that is still the government line. We're probably going to find out next week, because that's when the negotiations are set to take place again. So needless to say, this is going to be quite interesting. But as I've said before, these talks, especially around this, will either strengthen Liz's position when she goes, or should we say, when she makes a move to replace Boris, or it will weaken her position. It will do one of those two things. It will either become a millstone around her neck for the running in the leadership race, or it won't be a problem at all. We'll have to see. But needless to say, the Northern Ireland Protocol has the ECJ in there as the arbiter for any disputes that happen. That was something that both Frost and Johnson negotiated in that deal, in their oven-ready Brexit deal, that literally only a year ago was absolutely fantastic. So now, of course, obviously, as the year went on, the Brexiteers were less and less happy about this Brexit deal, more nominally for the fact that Northern Ireland was still in the single market and customs union. Why were they upset about that? Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ian Shelby. A coffee for me. Thank you very much. I'll definitely get one later. But thank you very much for the support there. They are annoyed about this because when it comes due, when people start to see that Northern Ireland, that is in the single market and customs union, businesses there are thriving, doing far better than businesses in Wales, England, wherever else in the UK are not doing as well. And it's happening now. It's happening right now that you see similar businesses, like one in the UK, one in Northern Ireland. The one in Northern Ireland, its order books are full. It's having little to no supply issues. It's got workers. Things are running fine in those Northern Ireland businesses. The UK one, not so much, which is why they are so desperate to pull the rest of Northern Ireland out of it. Because when it comes due, and people will look, they are so terrified of people looking what's the economy wise, what's going on in Northern Ireland to the rest of them, that they are so worried that this will prove how bad Brexit is. And they're right to the extent they are right. It will just prove how bad Brexit is. But again, we don't need that to be there. But again, it's fantastic to have it because we can now have a part of the UK that is in the customs union single market that we can compare to the rest of the country that isn't. And we can literally look at the damage in sectors and industries and the effects that he's having as not being in that institution. So it will go on. And this is why they are so desperate to pull the ECJ out of it. Not only that, but we'll also be hearing later about the threats to trigger Article 16. And it will be very interesting to see what they've got to say about that. But we'll save that surprise for a bit later. So anyway, let's continue.
And I've done a few videos on the ECJ and the protocol, but for those who aren't aware, could you give a bit of background on this, please?
Before he does jump into that, a bit of worth information. Out of the, I think it's like 68, 69 times the UK has been to the ECJ. We've been to the court how many times? Out of all those times, we've only lost, I believe, about 6 times, which when you think about it is quite a good win-loss record. The fact that we've got so many wins compared to so few losses, that is pretty good. So why are Brexiteers so scared about this? In fact, again, Michael, question I would love to ask you, why are you as a Brexiteer so scared of the ECJ when we have won so many more times than we have lost in there? Just a question I'd love to ask you, my friend.
Okay, so the ECJ is the supreme judicial body in charge of all aspects of the interpretation of the Northern Ireland Protocol. In other words, the contract that we have with the European Union over North.
No, that's wrong straight away. I've just realised that he is wrong straight away. They are not the overwhelming body. There is a joint committee board. So even before like an issue would go to the court, it would go to the joint body. You know, it would go to this like arbitration body first before it went to the ECJ. So he's wrong there that it is like the supreme overlord in that regard.
Northern Ireland empowers the EU itself, its top court, to judge whether or not we're complying with that contract, and to judge whether Northern Ireland and its British citizens are complying with the terms and regulations set out in the protocol. We have in effect handed over control to a significant extent of Northern Ireland to the European Union through the hegemony of the European Court of Justice, if that makes sense.
It's not, they don't have, again, this is the fantastic language about Brexiteers when you listen to them talk. They talk about the EU as if it is this giant, terrifying organization. They talk about it like that. And you've just heard him say, like, describe the EU as this giant monolith organization coming in ready to take your sovereignty. And it's not. It really isn't. But this is the type of language that they use. It's all fear, and then slip in at the end for what they really want. And of course, the real reason, as we've said, they do not want it to be in the single market customs union, because Northern Ireland effectively has to be in the single market customs union. Otherwise, a hard land border will come between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. And you cannot have that because of the Good Friday Agreement / Belfast Agreement, depending, of course, which side of the border you fall on, because that would be breaking an international treaty, hence why we have effectively a border in the Irish Sea, keeping Northern Ireland in the single market and customs union. As I said it before, if the government were really serious about solving this issue around Northern Ireland, with a stroke of a pen, Boris Johnson could go, the UK wants to rejoin the single market and customs union. Again, a position that was the official position of the Leave campaign. Of course, I'd love to remind you all that famous quote by Daniel Hannan, only a fool talks about leaving the single market and customs union. Again, Daniel Hannan, aka the brain of Brexit, there saying that thing. And again, something I would love to ask Michael about that quote, what he thought about that. That's, again, questions for Brexiteers I'd love to ask.
It's effectively the annexation of part of Northern Ireland, and there's
the annexation of part of Northern Ireland. No, the EU has not annexed Northern Ireland. It is still very much part of the UK. Again, as I said just a moment ago, the fear language that he's using here, they've annexed part of the UK. How could they? It's the Northern Ireland. I guarantee you at some point in this conversation, he will probably say that Northern Ireland has become a colony of the EU. I guarantee you at some point he will use that word. He will use those words.
And as long as the ECJ, the European Court of Justice, has that position over Northern Ireland, it is impossible for anyone to claim that the entire United Kingdom has left the European Union.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I said at the very beginning. Impossible to say that the entire of the UK has left the European Union. Why? Again, as I said, they are so worried about that's the situation that they are in. They're so worried about people realizing that people in Northern Ireland, like, their businesses are doing fine because they're in the single market customs union. It's going to be really embarrassing, like, post-pandemic, when we're coming out and having all, like, the economic recovery, which, by the way, if you've seen economists talking about this, the UK is set to have the slowest recovery out of all the countries in the world of this pandemic. So we've got that to look forward to next year as well. It will be really, really embarrassing when you've got, like, Northern Ireland, like, recovering really well compared to the rest of the UK. Why is it recovering really well? They do not want people to ask that question, Because the answer to that question will be because it's in the single market customs union.
Indeed, Michael, it's worse than us remaining in the EU, because actually what you have now is the hegemony of a third-party court, if you like, a counterparties court, judging whether or not we are compliant.
It is not a third party. The ECJ is not a third party in this. Like, again, he's trying to make it seem like the EU institutions are like evil elements within themselves, but they're not at all. There is no third party in this conversation. It is Britain and the EU in this conversation. There is no third party here in this. Again, it's more of that, as I said before, that fear-mongering language that the Brexiteers love to use.
With the agreement that they're adjudicating on. It's like you selling your house and the contract between yourself as a seller and the buyer being adjudicated by the buyer. You wouldn't do it, would you?
No, you wouldn't do that in that example, but that doesn't sort of fulfill your that doesn't even fulfill his original goal of saying that the European Court of Justice was a third party. Right? Okay, I'm going to steelman his argument here. Essentially, what he should have used was, this is like trying to sell your house, but there is a third party that is dictating the terms of how you sell your house to the buyer, and they are that third party. That is what he should have said. Like, congratulations that I've steelmanned your argument there for you, well, your analogy. But yeah, that is what he should have used. That is what he should have said effectively there. But even then, that's not happening. You know, even now, if again, to use that house buyer analogy, the way that the agreement is set up is someone who wants to buy your house is not dictating the terms. This is very clearly the seller has all, again, pretty much the power here. It's just that the buyer has said there are some terms and conditions that I would like to follow when you are selling this house to me. You know, if you want to sell your house to them, then you're going to have to follow some of these rules. Again, it's the rules and regulations that they want. And again, it highlights where all the Brexiteers are all part of this free market fundamentalist mindset, where they want to get rid of as much regulation as they possibly can starting next year. And they are desperate to run a mile a minute and try and get rid of, hack away as much regulation as they can, but they daren't, because they know that public perception of them doing that might be perceived really badly. And then people might ask the question, was this what Brexit was all about? To which a lot of people will say, well, that's not why I voted for Brexit. But to them it is. Because Brexit was all about turning the UK into Singapore on the Thames, turning it into a low tax, low regulation country, which is not what people voted for. Again, I've said this before, when you look at like the Leave voters in general, if you took them all as a massive blob, you could separate them all into massive groups. They all voted for Brexit for all vastly different reasons. And a lot of them bought the guff that the Leave campaign was selling. Again, one of the most successful things the Leave campaign actually did was convince people that would be staying in the single market customs union if they voted to leave. And remember that immortal quote from Daniel Hannan, only a fool would talk about leaving the single market.
There's been reports that this was a red line for the government to remove the ECJ completely. And since then, there have been rumours coming out that actually the government's position on that had changed.
And there it is. You'll notice the date, literally a week before A week before Frost resigned. Is that a coincidence? No, my friends, it is not a coincidence at all. That is the prime reason why he left. Because Frost had been threatening all year, multiple times, to trigger Article 16. Remember, on the Liz Truss Article 16 trigger count, we are at 1 so far. We are at 1 so far. Frost, I think, as I counted it, bless me, as I counted it, I got up to about 15 or 16. That's how many times I managed to count of Frost threatening to trigger Article 16. We'll see how high Liz Truss gets, but this was non-negotiable. They negotiated the deal which put the EU judge's role in the Northern Ireland Protocol. You know, who else is going to adjudicate it? You know, it's there. It's still in the Single Market Customs Union. Hence, why the ECJ has that role and determination when it comes to these trade disputes, to make sure that companies there are following the rules, are following the laws and regulations there. It's no different to when we were in the European Union. But there you go.
Even that, perhaps, that change in position, backing down in the negotiations with the EU on this aspect, could be a contributing factor to Lord Frost resigning as Brexit minister.
It was, Michael. It very much was.
First of all, Ben, do you think that's likely? And second of all, what do you make of Frost leaving that role?
I think it's a dead certainty that the British government under Prime Minister Johnson are going to capitulate on the ECJ. What?
I don't know if they'll get into this, but I would love to hear them say, what's the other option? Like, if you get rid of the ECJ, that the European Court of Justice, out of this deal, and remember, Northern Ireland is still in the Single Market Customs Union, who becomes the adjudicator? Is it a British court? Because here's the thing, Brexiteers have talked non-stop about deregulation. So how is that following the same rules as being in the Single Market Customs Union? Again, it doesn't make sense. This is why, again, to preserve the Good Friday Agreement, Northern Ireland had to be left in the Single Market and Customs Union. If not, you would have had a hard border between the north of Ireland and the Republic, which would again lead to massive problems. Breaking international treaties, we'd become an international pariah. The US would almost certainly put sanctions on us, as would the rest of the EU, being having a lot of pressure put on us by Ireland in this case. Because that's what they're suggesting. Like, I would love to know what they talk about what the alternative is. I don't know if they'll actually get to what the alternative actually is, because they never seem to talk about alternatives.
What we're going to find, I think, pretty quickly in the new year is that some form, using the words that the government will use, of ECJ supervision will remain. And in order to make to facilitate trade between...
So you've got to have the ECJ remain there, because if you have British courts with this new deregulatory regime that we've just gone through about what they want to do, how does that maintain and keep the integrity of the single market? And remember, you've got to keep Northern Ireland in the Single Market and Customs Union if you want that open land border, which in then turns keeps the Good Friday Agreement open and valid. Like, this is the only way, like, you solve this problem. The Northern Ireland Protocol is literally like the best of both worlds. This is the only way you can actually solve this problem. Like, I would love to know what the Brexiteer solution to this is. I hope they'll get into it. I don't think they will, but we'll see.
Great Britain and Northern Ireland and diminish the impact of that Irish Sea border. In order to achieve that, instead of refusing checks at Larne and Belfast and so on, what our government is going to do is align the United Kingdom more with EU regulations so that the need for those checks diminishes. In other words, we are going to capitulate both on the ECJ as well as the regulatory environment.
I would, again, another question I would have to ask to the Brexiteer here, Michael. What do you say to businesses that want to continue following the regulatory regime of Europe because it is their largest export market? Again, I would love to hear what the Brexiteer answer to that is.
Johnson will then claim that he's got rid of the RSC border and he'll try and brush the whole thing under the carpet. And yes, absolutely, the reason Lord Frost resigned is because the Prime Minister put him in an invidious position, having made the ECJ a red line, and then no doubt instructing Frost, I think it must have been about a month ago.
Frost negotiated the Northern Ireland Protocol. He knew the role of the ECJ when he was negotiating it. Why on earth would someone who has negotiated the role of the ECJ, European Court of Justice, into the Northern Ireland Protocol now be so dead set against them being there? Very, very interesting, to say the least. But hey, it was, quote, the oven-ready deal. Of course, much fanfare was, of course, being laid forth this time last year about this deal. How quickly a year has been and how quickly they've turned against this fantastic deal that no doubt, even I guarantee if we went back in time in this guy's videos, we would see him celebrating Boris Johnson's deal and calling it how fantastic and wonderful it was.
That he has to give in on the ECJ, and that became unpalatable for Lord Frost.
Ben, what are your thoughts on the fact that we have seen now for months, it's been going on a while now, both Boris Johnson and Lord Frost, when he was in that role as Brexit Minister, say that the conditions for triggering Article 16 have been met, and yet these negotiations with the EU are allowed to go on and on and on, seemingly with very little progress, and now into 2022.
Yeah, well, we've seen this all before, haven't we, Michael?
Because he can't. Literally, he can't trigger Article 16. Article 16 is a threatless threat. Article 16 is just a non-starter. The second the UK were to trigger Article 16, that puts us in a trade war with not only the EU, but with the United States, as probably as well as many other countries around the world who recognize the importance of the Good Friday peace agreement. The idea that triggering Article 16 is a good thing goes all the way back to the Brexiteer fantasies of leaving the EU, that leaving the EU is going to be a good thing. We're going to have all these positive things. Again, not turned out that way.
Last year, there were deadlines set by the Prime Minister. In the negotiating paper set out for the trade agreement with the EU, the Prime Minister said that if we don't have a trade agreement with the EU by 30th June, we leave on WTO terms.
And no one wanted to leave on WTO terms. No one absolutely in their right mind wanted to leave on WTO terms. WTO terms would have been the hardest of all possible Brexit. Boris Johnson was never, ever going to leave on those terms, which is why I think that he in his mind practiced doing all these things and then only to vote for the very thing that he rebelled against Theresa May for, indeed even replaced her as Prime Minister for. yeah, it's madness. It really is. The more you look at what is going on and what the Brexiteers are saying, the more and more ludicrous their position becomes, because Brexit is never enough. It's always something else. It's always that next thing. They are always the betrayed and always the betrayers. You know, they are always the victim in this type of thing.
By 30th June, we leave on WTO terms. Come 30th June, we didn't leave. Then he extended it to 15th October. Come 15th October, we didn't have a deal, but still we didn't leave on WTO terms. And then eventually we signed the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, giving way on all the issues until then that the Prime Minister had set out as a red line, including the level playing field in fishing. And we
again, this was hailed by so many Brexiteers as the Brexit we've all been waiting for. But less than a year, all have turned against it. This isn't the Brexit they voted for. This isn't the Brexit they wanted. Maybe, guys, you should actually maybe tell the truth. Maybe tell the public what the Brexit is that you wanted. And then maybe people might go, that isn't the Brexit that I wanted either. You know, we're already seeing people turn against Brexit, saying that Brexit is being bad for the UK and that it is damaging the UK. We said it. One thing that we've often compared Brexit to is the Iraq War. Back when the Iraq War was sort of first building up, massive public opinion was in favour for the Iraq War. But obviously, after the Iraq War, given all the opinion polls, you should have been able to go out into any high street, any city, any town in the country, and you should have been able to find someone very easily that supported the Iraq War. After the Iraq War, you could not find a single person in favour of Brexit. I guarantee you it will go exactly the same way. Exactly the same way.
We've seen exactly the same thing now play out over the Northern Ireland Protocol. In June at the G7 this year, the Prime Minister said we wouldn't hesitate to invoke Article 16 to suspend aspects of the protocol if the EU didn't relent in its position. Well, that was June, 6.5 months ago. And we've done nothing other than hesitate. Our Prime Minister does not want to challenge the EU. He is fearful of an independent, nimble.
Nothing of the sort. Triggering Article 16 would be an absolute fool's quest. It would be an absolute fool's errand. There is no upside to triggering Article 16.
United Kingdom. Our Prime Minister has no confidence in his own government and in the United Kingdom. He fears treading.
Oh my gosh! Oh my God! If again, I would put money on this guy who's about to call Boris Johnson a Remainer or a Ramona. I would put money on about this guy. Again, he's using all the buzzwords that Brexiteers normally talk about. People like me who, again, saying, you know, leaving the EU was a bad idea. This is exactly what they say about us. So I wonder if he's going to go there.
Government and in the United Kingdom. He fears treading out on his own, and as long as he continues to fear that, there is no way that he will stand up properly to the people of Northern Ireland and reject these invidious aspects of the protocol. But just
so what happens? What happens? Boris Johnson does as you want. He triggers Article 16. I would love to know. Well, we know what would happen, but I would love to know what the Brexiteer game of that is. What happens? Because they're all pushing him to trigger Article 16, but we have not yet to hear what they think will happen next. Now we know what will happen next. It will essentially trigger a trade war with the EU. I look forward to again, Michael. Again, I'm reaching out to you. Come on my show. I want to ask you these questions. I really, really, really do want to ask you these questions because I would love to know the answer to them. But yeah, anyway, let's continue to see what he has to say.
Just coming back to your specific point, Michael, when they said that the conditions existed for the invocation of Article 16, what the government effectively was saying was that Northern Ireland is being economically damaged by the protocol.
Northern Ireland is not being economically damaged by the protocol. If anything, it has actually gained from being in the Northern Ireland Protocol. Of course, again, if Michael was here, I would challenge him on that ascension. I would ask him to show data proving that Northern Ireland has been economically damaged by this agreement. There is no such data because no such data exists. Northern Ireland has not been damaged by the Northern Ireland Protocol.
And the minute they accepted that, the government was not just entitled to invoke Article 16, it was obliged to invoke Article 16. Because as the government of the United Kingdom, it is...
Yes, the government of the United Kingdom is obliged to start a trade war because I do not understand what the Northern Ireland Protocol does, nor do I understand the historical implications of what the hard border between the North and Republic of Ireland actually means. Shocking. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the caliber of Brexiteers that you have on this side. And again, what happens? You trigger Article 16. What happens? I want to know what happens. You trigger Article 16. What happens? Now we know what happens. We know what happens. We've been through this countless times. What happens? It starts a trade war for one. But I want to know what the Brexiteers think triggering Article 16 means and what happens.
It is obliged to protect the British citizens. It is obliged to protect the people of Northern Ireland. But they haven't done it. They've declared that the conditions exist for its invocation, but yet they are in gross dereliction of duty to the British people, more particularly the people of Northern Ireland, by not invoking it. We have a government that actually doesn't seem to care for 1.8 million British citizens living in Northern Ireland.
So what happens? That again, it's the same question I'm asking again and again. What happens, guys? Brexiteers, what happens? Tell me, please. I want to know. I know what happens, but I want to know what you think happens. You trigger Article 16. What happens? Like, what's your solution to this? What's your solution to keeping the open land border there? I know someone's going to turn around and say, oh, we've got this magical technical solution. No technical solution exists anywhere in the world for covering this border. There is no digital border anywhere in the world. It doesn't exist. That would become a smuggler's paradise, because where's this? Again, you would need physical infrastructure to check that people are fulfilling what they are going across the border with. We've talked about this. Wow, I mean, going back, where is it? Going back to this. Going back to all the way back to this. The book written by Ian Dunt. This is the first edition of Brexit. What the hell happens next? Ian Dunt said very, very clearly that everything that the Brexiteers want to do would turn Northern Ireland into the world's first state-sanctioned smuggler state. That's as true as it was back when this book was first released back in 2016. It's still true today in 2022. The Brexiteers want to make Northern Ireland into a state-sanctioned smuggler state. Oh yeah, and just to point it out even further, Marc Francois doesn't have an answer either to this question. Marc Francois also just seems to think that triggering Article 16 will somehow be a good thing. Again, they don't say what the consequences are or what happens. Just trigger Article 16. Trigger Article 16. It'll be fine. It'll work out. What do you mean it'll work out? Tell me what happens. Why do you think it'll work out? That's what I want to know. Anyway, let's go back to this.
Seen Kate Hoey just come out and done a separate video on it, Ben, say that Liz Truss, the government, need to ditch the protocol in its entirety now. First of all, do you agree with that?
Again, that's the exact same question you've just asked him, Michael. Why are you asking? You've just asked him that question. Of course he's going to agree to that.
And second of all, if you do agree with that, what would you then see as the pathway forward?
Well, people say the invocation of Article 16 would result in a trade war.
It would. Article 16 would result in a trade war. This is what I've been wanting to hear. Let's hear what he has to say next. This is important.
Of Article 16 would result in a trade war with the EU. Undoubtedly, ditching the protocol would therefore result in a trade war. But the point is this, Michael, we've been in a trade war with the EU since 2016. The first phase of that war was them trying to undermine our decision to leave the EU.
We were not in a trade war. We were not in a trade war. I want to make that very clear. The EU has always accepted Britain's right, as it was written out in the set of treaties, to trigger Article 50 and start its leaving of the EU. Yeah, exactly. This is another thing I was about to say. How are you in a trade war when you are in the same single market? You are right, Johnny K. The Brexiteers have no idea what they're doing. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah, you are right. He doesn't seem to know what a trade war is. You are right there, Kevin. He does not seem to understand at all what a trade war is. You are right there. Anyway, let's get back to this because I want to hear what this full answer of what this is.
The first phase of that war was them trying to undermine our decision to leave the EU. The second phase was them stitching us up with the withdrawal agreement and the TCA, and now they're stitching us up over Northern Ireland. And this trade war with the European Union will continue whether or not we ditch the protocol. The sensible, correct thing for our government to do.
None of that was a trade war. This is part of the whole Brexiteer line that Brexit, if only Theresa May and Boris Johnson had done what we said to do, not what they did, if they'd only listened to us, then Brexit would have been done right. This is the narrative that they are setting up, that Brexit hasn't been done right yet. This is their narrative. Again, as Kevin just said there, he doesn't know what a trade war is. A trade war is specifically targeting goods, services moving from one country to another. What he has just described was essentially the Brexiteers constantly crowing about how the UK had all the cards in Brexit, that it held all the cards, that it would get exactly what they wanted. And of course, we didn't. We're the smaller market. We're the smaller partner here in this agreement. That's essentially what happened. We are now a smaller partner, a junior partner in this trade and cooperation agreement that we have signed with the EU, because we are the smaller partner. You can either accept that, Brexiteers, or you can say Brexit didn't work. And there's no excuses, just Brexit didn't work. Because at every single point of this, the Brexiteers got their way. Every single point of this, the Brexiteers got their way. They bullied Theresa May into triggering Article 50. They were then with her initially at Chequers when she laid out what Brexit means. They then revolted against her again over her Northern Ireland Protocol deal, which is exactly the same thing that Boris Johnson and Lord Frost negotiated, saying that the backstop, or the Northern Ireland backstop, wasn't proper Brexit and would mean Brexit in name only, or BINO as it became. This then led them to literally giving Theresa May a kicking 3 times to try and get her protocol through Parliament done. It failed, so out went Theresa May. In comes Boris Johnson, the guy who they say was going to get Brexit done for them. So on he goes, negotiates the Brexit withdrawal agreement, is an oven-ready deal. An oven-ready deal, ready and waiting. It was sung from the heavens as being fantastic. But the Northern Ireland Protocol was just the Northern Ireland backstop with a different name. It was the exact same thing, just with a different name. And at the time, all the Brexiteers accepted it. Even this guy here accepted it. Every single moment of Brexit, since the triggering of Article 50, the Brexiteers have had their way. There is no one to blame for Brexit going badly except the Brexiteers themselves.
Ditch the protocol. The sensible, correct thing for our government to do is to ditch the protocol. The only genuine way, Michael, to get.
I also want to point out that, again, what he mentioned there was not a trade war. That was not a trade war by any strength or length of imagination. Yet, if the government does trigger Article 50, not only will this put us in a trade war with the EU, it will also put us into a trade war, most probably and definitely, with America as well. And maybe even a couple of other countries that join in on this. Because there are a lot of countries out there that do recognize, like, the Good Friday Agreement as being a fantastic international peace agreement. So again, I have to ask what happens. You've said, oh, we've been in a trade war. Again, trying to prime the Brexiteers for thinking, don't worry about being in a trade war. You've been in one since 2016. No, we haven't been in any trade war, my friend. If Boris Johnson was stupid enough, and he is stupid enough, to actually trigger Article 16, it would be an absolute disaster. It is going to be absolute disaster for the UK. And then I'd love to see what their explanation around that is as well, if that ever happens. But anyway, we'll get into it. I want to see what he thinks trigger Article 16 will actually mean. But again, he hasn't actually answered that yet.
Ditch the protocol. The sensible, correct thing for our government to do is to ditch the protocol. The only genuine way, Michael, to get a proper Brexit is to rip up the withdrawal agreement, rip up the TCA, and for the United Kingdom to go independent. That requires a government to have vision, to plan for what the EU might riposte with, and to make the United Kingdom a Singapore on Thames, if you like. You know.
Congratulations, my friends. Congratulations. I can't believe I predicted that. What have I been saying about just, again, I've said it in this video, that's what the Brexiteers wanted. He wanted to make, you know, the UK Singapore on the Thames. That was their whole plan and idea. And he's just admitted it here. He's just admitted it here. And yet you can go back. You can go back to the Leave campaign, and Leavers said that what he's suggesting was not what they were going to do for the UK. That was not the plan. The last thing the UK wants to do is just go out and just join the WTO, because apparently the WTO will be fantastic and it'll be all songs and dances, you know, it'll be all jazz time rodeos and whatever, it'll be fantastic. No, it will not go that way. The Brexiteers just seem to think that they can do stuff and no one else will react. And that has been their biggest problem since day one. They've thought that every single moment of the way, they will have their own way and they will get what they want. That's never, ever happened. What he has just suggested would be absolute economic disaster for the UK. So at least we now know what they think triggering Article 6, or what he wants the UK should do to trigger Article 16. Again, no one in the UK actually wants that. This Singapore on the Thames that he's suggested. No one wants that. You know, no one in the voting public wants that. That was one of the specific things that the Leave campaign expressly tried to distance themselves from. There was only, what was his name? Was it Patrick Munford? He was the only, and again, not an economist, but he was the only Brexiteer at the time saying that that's what Brexit would be. That that's what Brexit should be. Singapore on the Thames. And he was shunned from every single Leave event, campaign. He was kept at arm's length. And yet now that is Brexit. This is the end goal. Singapore on the Thames. That's it. That's not what you promised people in 2016.
Make the United Kingdom a Singapore on Thames, if you like. You know, a deregulated, low taxation, independent, nimble trading nation taking the fight to the European Union. But my concern is the Prime Minister doesn't have that vision, and he certainly doesn't have the competence to.
That would be an absolute disaster. That would be an absolute disaster for the United Kingdom. And no one voted for that in 2016. If they had put that forward in 2016 as this is the goal of Leave, Leave wouldn't have won. Leave wouldn't have come anywhere close to winning. That's why the Leave campaign had to say that the UK would be remaining in the single market customs union, that we were only talking about leaving the political institutions, not the economic ones. And again, like every revolution ever in history, the extremists keep on pushing more and more and more and more and more. That's exactly what you see at most other revolutions that go wrong. You've only got to look at the French Revolution. You know, look at the rise and fall of Robespierre. You know, it was the revolution that went wrong. And Napoleon eventually came along and said, you know, I am the, what was the quote now? It was something like, you know, I have come and I have fulfilled the wishes of the revolution. Very interesting. But yeah, this revolution is nowhere near done yet, and they are going to start eating themselves pretty soon. And sooner or later, just like this guy has said there, he's said the quiet part out loud, which not all the other, shall we say, Brexiteers in the Tory party are ready or yet want to say. They've been on camera and said it once before, but they won't admit that they said it or that that's their goal of Brexit. But you know, it's nice to be right. It's nice to be right.
To deliver such an agenda.
And finally, Ben, I think one story that got really underreported in the UK was the threat, basically, that the EU are putting together potential measures they would take in response if the UK did trigger Article 16.
Yes, because if you make that threat, of course the EU is going to respond. Like, what do you think the EU is going to do? Just say, do nothing? Or like not prepare a response in case you actually went ahead and did something? Yeah, oh my. To be honest, I'm not interested in hearing his response to that because oh my, that would be ridiculous. But yeah, we've been going 2 hours now. Save me from this nightmare. Yeah, so my last offer to Michael, I would love to have you on my show. I really would. Like I say, I have done a tweet out to him very recently. So if you are on Twitter and you are following me on Twitter, if you would like and retweet that, so maybe who knows, maybe we'll get Michael on here in the future. Maybe we can ask some of these questions that have come up in this video to him. I generally like to know what those answers are. I'd love to put forward the whole thing of, hey, Jonathan Sundell. Oh, thank you very much, my friend. Is Brexit over soon? Thanks for all your bids. Thank you very much for the support there. Brexit is never over. That's one of the things. Let's end this on a bizarre note. Brexit is never ever going to be over. It will be forever recurring, ever going on. You know, I had a friend who said last year, when all the Brexit stuff happened, he said, "How are you going to ever get content for your channel now?" And I'm like, my friends, Brexit never ends. So on that note, my friends, once again, thank you very much all for joining me this evening. Like I say, we've gone on for quite some time this evening. It's been a while since we've done a 2-hour session, but yeah. Thank you all for joining me this evening. I hope you've all enjoyed yourselves. If you would like to, remember to hit the like and share button on your way out. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and the One Up Donation link called Buy Me a Coffee. Thank you to the people who have sent super chats in during the live stream. Thank you very much for all the support that you do show the channel. It is very, very much appreciated. And of course, as always, thank you to everyone who's watched this evening. Even if you just hit the like and share button, it is very, very much appreciated. And as always, thanks for watching. Enjoy yourselves. We'll see you all on Saturday for the Good Morning Walk, weather permitting, hopefully. And of course, watch out for more videos we've got coming out this week. And of course, we'll see you all next time.